to join us with the big picture, what we're watching this week, Peter McGuire from XM joins me now. Peter, welcome. Look, let's start big and perhaps go a bit smaller. You can't get much bigger than the Fed right now. The FOMC meets this week. No change expected in policy, but every word will be really, examined for any hint of rate cuts, right?
Absolutely, Nadine, and good morning. Yeah, a couple of months back, we were saying that March was going to be blast off and you'd see a pullback, but now it's less than 50% chance, or as far as a probability, and it's probably closer to 40. So there's no real chance of we're going to see any movement. But as you said, every single word will be dissected, pulled apart, and and the framing of each sentence. So we've just got to sit through this, but one would have thought that, with crude sitting in the 70s, then there'd be no further blast off as far as inflation. But as it enters these 80s, it changes the footprint, I think, from the Fed's point of view.
Well, can we just then now touch upon what's happening in the Middle East? It is a powder keg. There is escalation in terms of Iran's influence over the instability in the Middle East. If you look to the Houthis, if you look to the drone attack on U.S. troops in the United States. As a trader, how can you estimate what's likely to happen here? I mean, this is just going to be a real source of volatility, one would imagine, going forward.
Well, exactly, and you've also got an OPEC meeting on Thursday. So I think that if you look at the big frame, Nadine, you'd have to be long at this point because it's had a nice little rally to the upside over the last few sessions. And you're sitting at about 83.50 for Brent, and it's snapped through 80 very with a lot of conviction. So you'd have to say 85 could be where you keep an eye out for. It's dragging up naturally WTI, and that's around that 78. It's smacked through 78 as well. So 80 is the new handle for that we're looking for. So as that moves forward, we're just how the week plays. I won't be surprised by Thursday. You might be knocking on the door of 80 because, as you said, Houthis. The whole issue as far as that around the Gulf of Aden, leading into the Red Sea and naturally through the Suez. And they call it the Gulf of Tears or the Gulf of Grief for a good reason. And that's certainly certainly living up to those words at the moment.
Certainly is. So that's oil. But you did reference, the pressure that oil at around $80 will put on inflation, which is not, of course, what we want to hear here, not just at the Bowser, but also because we've got this quarterly inflation read with expectations it will come in soft here locally in Australia, taking pressure off the RBA. But it still feels as if, we can't get too excited about this retreat in inflation.
No, you can't, Nadine. I think because it's only early days as far as, we're at the end of January and we're closer to 85 than we are to 75 or closer to 90 than we are probably to 74. So there's the point that we need to be conscious of. And then the other side is what's going on from a geopolitical, as you mentioned, and that leads straight into, where the RBA sits. So central banks have got a little bit of a dilemma at the moment. We thought we might see some respite as far as rate pullback, but that doesn't seem to be materialising, at least for this quarter. And we'll just have to see how it moves forward as far as, April and May. Okay.
So we've covered off the big picture stuff, but you can't get much bigger than the Mag 7 in the US right now. Mag 6. Oh, Tesla's out?
Tesla's out. It's the sexy 6. It's down 20% in the last month, and that's taken $240 billion capitalization out of it as far as market cap. That's the size for everyone. That's the size of Coca-Cola. So it really is a bit of a heads up. And the other side is, we're keeping a very close eye. Is it going to drag the other 494 stocks up? Are we going to see 5,100? Are we going to see what Ed Yardeni is saying that, the Wall Street veteran 5,400 by end of year? Everyone's got their own opinion, Nadine, and we've just got to sit tight and see how it rolls for the first quarter earnings and, of course, consumption patterns and, health of the retail consumer.
Did you just call it the sexy 6?
I sure did.
All right. We'll print that one, Peter.
Time too. I just was thinking, you take something that's been spanked down so heavily, Nadine, you've got to give it. You can't have it in the 7 anymore. It really disappointed the whole way through, and it's down 20% in the month. So that tells me that unless it bounces strongly, there's further downside for Tesla.
Right. Okay. So local investors here, the ASX hasn't been looking too poor as of late as well. No. Moving in tandem, I suppose, with some of what's going on Wall Street, but also Europe with our cyclical exposure to the miners, a little bit of stimmy, so-called, coming through in China. last week.
Yeah.
So what are your expectations for the local market today, Peter?
Well, I mean, I think it'll be probably a bit up, Nadine, and Europe is around about 0.8% up for the month, and that's not a bad number for Europe. And I think the continuation as far as Wall Street pushing things higher. So I feel as though across Asia today, Nikkei's been incredibly strong as well. I'm keeping out of the CSI 300 in China. That's Doomsville. But overall, I think we're going to get a little bit of a further push to the upside for the ASX, Nadine. And I think we might be on the back of something out of the Nikkei and probably Wall Street for the rest of the week.